Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Eden Zero, Chapter 141. When we last left our heroes, we kind of started out focusing on the crew of the Eden Zero as they all kind of had a few confrontations with each other before the battle started. We saw Laguna calling Ibaraki, as Ibaraki kind of explained that Goodwin never really hated him. I was just kind of putting on that show for the crew. And then Wise kind of confronted Laguna, as Wise is kind of figuring that everything Laguna has done has been to get someone to help him fight Nero. And I'm a little bit unsure about that. I went back and read that I'm acting as the man with no goal scene from 129. And I'm a little bit skeptical if you can really put those two pieces together, but maybe. Either way, Wise is very unhappy with the idea of Laguna kind of using Wise's crew as a sacrificial pawn to get rid of Nero, which is some great character development for Wise. Holy shit, that's some good shit there. We also see Rebecca and Couchpo have a sweet conversation, as Couchpo kind of says that she can't leave, because what kind of friend would she be if she sort of abandoned Rebecca when the going got tough? And after that, we had a conversation with the Rutherfords, as they would kind of express their desire to stay and fight, and then the battle began. Oasis sort of acted as a distraction so the Eden Zero could break through the atmosphere of Nero 66, where they were seen by Shura. And that's where we start off in chapter 141. Here we have this kind of color page of the very large crew of Edens at this point, all just sort of hanging out, having a good time. They're like eating dinner at some fancy restaurant. It's nice. It's fun. And then we see another color page, of like the four main like combatants of the war. Shiki with the Eden Zero, not the war, the battle. Shura with the Empire, Goodwin with Oasis, and Eraser with Viracion 6 Interstellar. Chapter 141, A World of Ash. Also, we see Shura's hair color for the first time, which is green. I always kind of pictured him as having, like, white hair, but that's interesting. Anyway, we finally jump into the action, right where we left off, the Eden Zero breaking through the atmosphere, headed towards a kind of domed city where Shura is, and we kind of see outside the domed city for, I think, the first time. And it's very fitting for a title of A World of Ash. Kind of reminds me of, like, Mandalore in the Clone Wars. How it has those, like, domed cities, and then the rest of it is kind of a barren wasteland. And that's definitely the vibe I get here. I'm really curious how this design is going to be in color. But anyway, Rebecca looks out the window. There's a dome over the city. And Happy tells her, yeah, because they call this the Planet of Ash, which is news to us, but they act like this is well known. And Homura asks, does this ash in the air affect the human body? Pino tells her, I would not recommend long-term activity outside the dome. And Hermit just sort of counters, but I'm sure a little ash won't hurt anybody. And Wise kind of, like, looks at her, oh gee, that's reassuring. And Sister grins, if anything happens, I'll fix you right up. Which, the only serious one here, I attempted to analyze its composition, but I could not identify all of its components. And then Shiki looks down at the dome, and this town is where we'll find the What's-It system, and Laguna corrects him, the All-Link system. And then Chris kind of chimes in, are you going to break through the dome? And Colleen just sort of smiles. That's how they got in on the Belial Gore, so... Of course, like, that's kind of, in this timeline at least, Colleen's, like, first real memory of the Eden Zero. So it makes sense that that's kind of, like, what she'd bring up, is that time they broke into her base. But Witch tells her, no, this time we have confirmed that several enemy ships are defending the structure. The Eden Zero will create a diversion by confronting them head-on, while a detached force infiltrates them underground. And we see, specifically, it will be the Aqua Wing that'll kind of break off and dive through the ground and pop up under the dome. And Hermit tells them, give me a minute. I'm working. I'm building you a route. And Witch tells them, listen up. If you don't destroy the All-Link system, every droid in the Aoi cosmos dies, including us. And Moscow behind her kind of panics. Aye! But Shiki tells her with like a confident grin, I promise you, I won't let that happen. Don't worry. If anyone can do this, we can. Loving the confidence. They're like, we're gonna make this work, or we're gonna die trying. And then this wham hits the ship, and Shiki kind of like rocks. He's like confused, and there's this ka-clong sound all over the ship. It's rumbling. Rebecca falls over. Everyone else kind of like struggles to maintain balance. Ah, eek, whoa. And Shiki looks around. What was that? And why is an enemy attack? But Witch tells them, detecting no physical damage to the ship. But how? And Sister just exclaims, what the hell is going on? The Eden Zero is stopped in midair. Oh, that's Shura. That is Shura and his gravity. We are getting our Shiki Shura fight a little sooner than I thought we would. And Hermit kind of looks over. No abnormalities in the power system. All systems green? And Rebecca, how? An invisible wall? Happy's are like sweating now. We crash into an invisible wall? But Witch looks over the readouts. No. This ether is... yeah, they're realizing that it's Shura. And Pino notices something. Master, look! And Shiki looks out. Laguna does the same, kind of like fearing. No. You've got to be kidding me. And the Rutherfords too. Impossible. It can't be. The Eden Zero was stopped by... And we see... I'm 99% sure that's Shura. And this is the first time I've seen his shoes. They look like lizard skin shoes. They're not good. They're kind of ugly. But yeah, it is in fact just Shura. We see his ether gear as he holds the Eden Zero in midair. For all of my griping about how much I dislike Shura as a character, that's cool. That's some like cool power shit. And Sister kind of panics. Shura's gravity powers? And Moscow is really panicking. That's massively unbelievable! And Chris looks in shock. He can stop a battleship? And then Wise and Homer exclaim, waltzing up here alone. Well, if he has such great power, he may as well. And then Hermit kind of looks at the readout some more. Oh no. These numbers are way beyond what I predicted. This should not be happening. Fire! We'll burn him to a crisp with the Eden's guns. And someone tells, stop! And that's Shiki. Shiki, who says, you'd use battleship cannons on a human being? But Sister tells him, that dude ain't human! And Shiki just calmly says, I'll go. And we see Moscow is getting awful close to pushing that don't push button. Could this be the arc we finally see what happens when you push the button? We shall see. But Rebecca calls to him, Shiki! But we see Shiki's just ready to go. He came here alone, so I'll fight him alone. And Hermit gets on to him. Absolutely not. I recalculated Shura's battle stats, and they're 4 times higher than what I predicted. You'll never beat him. But Shiki just kind of ignores her. It's awfully nice of him to come out and find us. Saves us the trouble of finding him. And Hermit just exclaims, somebody stop Shiki. But Shiki just stops them all. Trust me. I hope Shiki has some kind of plan here, because I don't know how he's going to win this one if Shura can just stop an entire ship like it's nothing. But Shiki says to Witch, let me off and follow the plan to take care of that what's-it system. As you wish. And Witch tells him, be careful down there, great Demon King. And Rebecca, too, just says, take care of that guy. And with that, Shiki just, like, is ejected from the ship. Like, just drops down. And Shura is stunned. And when Shiki hits the ground, Shura smirks, realizing what's about to happen. And seemingly drops his control of the Eden Zero. Eden Zero steering is back online, now leaving the battlefront. And we see Shiki just standing in front of the Eden Zero, glaring Shura down. That's a really fucking cool panel right there. And Shura just sort of looks over Shiki, and the two of them look at each other. Shiki frowning, and Shura giving that same kind of evil grin. Shiki just says, I guess you're Shura. Yeah, so? Who are you? And Shiki just looks at him. I'm Shiki. I'm here to stop you. And Shura kind of mocks him. Oh, really? So, how do you know Ziggy? Ziggy's my grandpa. And Shura just laughs. Grandpa? He's freaking a robot! Doesn't matter if someone's human or machine. And Shura kind of stops himself. Well, I got no right to talk. I'm the son of a monster, too. That's an interesting word choice, though, monster. When I imagine that Nero is just kind of an alien. But Shura explicitly calls him a monster. I'm curious if that means... Like, I imagine we're eventually going to get Nero backstory, and I imagine that's going to tie into it when we eventually get there. We'll see. Anyway, Shura continues. Okay, then. So you're working for Ziggy. Shiki tells him, nope. I'm gonna stop Grandpa, too. And Shura, like, looms over him. And then just, like, rails into him. Look, peasant. Commoners are supposed to live humble lives. They don't get to go around expecting to get everything they want. And Shiki just does not back down there. Only the royal family is allowed to do that. Yeah, Shura is... I feel like there's some kind of class discussion to be had here. And I'm not quite sure what it is yet. Maybe that'll become clearer as the arc goes on. But let's sit back and allow it to take shape. Though also there's an interesting thing there in that, you know, Shura is a prince, but Shiki's, at least according to Witch, a king. He's the Great Demon King. So I'm curious if that's kind of the route that Mashima is going with this. Anyway, Shura raises his hand to kind of grab at Shiki. Get it? Little Shiki? And then Shiki kind of like, you know, like presses down on the ground. We see the ground kind of crack around his feet. And then he grabs Shura's hand. And we see both of their ether gears kind of working against each other. It looks, though, like Shura is pretty definitively winning. Like, the ground around Shiki is kind of collapsing around him. And Shura's is seemingly fine. And yeah, Shiki's just can't really do anything. His foot is now, like, completely covered in rock. And Shura taunts him. Come on, man. Don't you use gravity too? Or what? Is this all you got? Shiki kind of grunts as he's pressed further and further down by Shura. What a lightweight. Bahaha! And Shiki, like, glares up at him. And then Shura is sent flying. Okay. Huh? I'm flying? When did that happen? Did he throw me with his gravity? When? How? I imagine what happens there is more that, like, Shiki caught Shura unawares. And so now that Shura knows this trick of Shiki's, it'll be a lot harder to deal with. Either way, Shiki is now, like, flying towards Shura and decks him. I've been waiting for that for weeks. Sends him flying. Gwah! You little. And Shiki is already coming for the next attack. And hits him again. Shura kind of coughs up blood as he hits the ground. Almost definitely not over yet. It'd be really, really bad if it was, but it's definitely not. Back on the Eden Zero, Hermit expresses surprise at something, and Rebecca comes over. What's wrong, Hermie? These numbers. Shura's not the only one who's much stronger than I predicted. Shiki is too. That there is not depicted as, like, a fear thing. Like, for a second, I was kind of scared of and on the previous page. It's like, that's our boy. Go get him. Like, the smiles they do there are, like, full of hope. And Shura looks up at Shiki. Huh. Not bad. And Shiki looks at him. Bring it on. And that's where we end off. With a really fun chapter. It lacks, I will say, a lot of the really good kind of character work of last time, which is fine. This is the moment where the action really starts up. But it does kind of open with a lot of exposition. A lot of, you know, the very large cast of the crew of Edens sort of all chatting and discussing what exactly Nero 66 is. And, you know, we see their plan. Their plan is pretty simple, but could work if Shura does not really get in the way. But then everything kind of goes to shit for a little bit when Shura steps out and just freezes the entire ship. And from that moment on, this chapter is a blast. Shiki has his, like, you know, badass, he came out here alone, so I'll fight him alone. You know, this is my fight, gravity versus gravity. And then he does it. You know, he goes out, Shura kind of drops the Eden Zero to kind of focus on his fight. And we see, you know, Shura's kind of taunting, and Shiki just does not let it get to him. You know, he has that whole, commoners are supposed to live humble lives, they don't get to go around expecting to get everything they want. Only the royal family is allowed to do that. He's kind of, like, Shura seems to be very clearly trying to get a rise out of Shiki, and he fails. Shiki just is not bothered by it. And just, like, silently starts the fight. They have that they open by, like, clashing gravities. And Shura seemingly has the upper hand at first until Shiki kind of takes him by surprise and just, like, sends him flying. My reading of that is that initially, looking back to page 17 and 18, the two of them are both kind of pressing down on each other. And then, but, like, Shura is winning that, and so Shiki takes him by surprise by flipping it and throwing Shura up, which he's not really expecting. That's my read of that. Which is a great little trick. And then Shiki gets two real good hits in on Shura, and it is glorious to behold. Shura deserves a fucking punch. And you know, we get Hermit telling us that Shiki is much more powerful than expected, and the fight continues. So yeah, this is just an utter blast of a chapter. And I'm really excited to see what happens next. Even if next chapter is not really focused on the fight with Shura, there still is all the things that Eden Zero has to do, and the Aqua Wing has to do. Wherever the hell Mashima takes us next, I am pumped for it. And I can't wait to see what happens. So I'm going to leave this video up here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. You know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!